Hello, and welcome to December Book Club. It is a delight to have you here, and I'm excited to talk about all the books that I read this December. I started the month with Health at Every Size from Linda Bacon. I feel like that is a seminal text. I talked about it last month as well. It's so good and not only affirming, but it helps break down a lot of the actively destructive messages that we have currently in medical practice around body weight and dieting and a lot of these practices that have been proven time and again to not only be ineffective but to actively be harmful. So that book was just excellent. Definitely a good addition to any shelf. I read Fitness for Everybody from Boggs, and that was delightful. I had a friend who read it and bounced off of it because she said it felt like just a collection of blog articles. That doesn't bother me because I don't read blogs, so having a curated text that's all of the more relevant articles from a blog is perfect for me. But if that's something that generally bothers you, I would maybe avoid that and just check out her work in general. Meg is the powerlifter who talks about using feminine bodies in the way that feels good to you, in the way that makes you feel empowered, and not buying into the bullshit of this is what you look like, or this is what you were assigned at birth, therefore this is all you're capable of, or this is what's appropriate for you. And I found it extremely empowering. I love strength training, and it's opened up so many doors for me. I loved it. I read A Swim in a Pond in the Rain from George Saunders. I talked about that pretty extensively last month, so I won't go too much into it right now. I read The Denial of Death from Ernest Becker, and I talked about it a lot last month, so I'm good on that now, but I did read Worm at the Core from Sheldon Solomon, which is his work based on Ernest Becker's work, so I'll talk about that in a little bit. I read Journey Through Trauma from Gretchen Schmetzer, and that was probably a very good primer because she breaks it down working through PTSD, especially complex PTSD. She works through 5 first steps and a very general overview of practice. So that could be good for somebody who's feeling a little overwhelmed by the amount of information and resources out there and just wants a quick bite-size starter pack. I feel like that would be a really good start. But if you're already in the process, if you're already working with a therapist, if you already have resources that have been fulfilling and sustaining for you that are a little more complex and robust, you might just want to skip that one. I read Norwegian Wood from Haruki Murakami, and folks in the book club will know I was mad. I love Haruki Murakami. I've been reading his work for as long as I can remember, and I'm only just developing an awareness of his perspective, and that it was just really obvious in Norwegian Wood. And I love all of my friends who have recommended this book to me time and time again, who also have a particular perspective that they're working out of. In Norwegian Wood, we have all of the characters that are growing and developing, all of the characters that are having interesting things happening to them and that are interesting people are generally female. And the perspective that we get to hear their stories through is the guy that jerks off to them, who doesn't experience anything interesting in his own life or any real character development apart from knowing women who have interesting things happen to them and who are interesting people. We have like some magical crone things going on. We have the angelic ill person thing going on. And it's just really tired. It has not aged well. I found it extremely frustrating that we're shielded from so much of the cool things that this book could explore and that, like glancing into, but he's glancing into these important things. A peep show window, and yuck, I don't want to hear about the guy that's jerking off to the important person going through a pivotal shift in their life. Thanks, Haruki. I read Know My Name from Chanel Miller, and I know this has been a really important book for a lot of people. I feel like if you've already been through sexual assault and are traumatized by it, you can just skip this. It's not for you. This book is for people who are doubting victims of sexual assault and abuse. This book is for people who have not experienced it and have maybe some judgments around it, or have been accused of it themselves and don't believe, or who are spectators on the outside and just enjoy a good story and a good bit of drama. Read it. give it a go and see how you feel on the other side. I read several volumes from The Girl from the Other Side, Schmetzer by Nagabe, and that is brilliant. It's a graphic novel, and it's set in simpler times, very low technology, and the allegories in place in this story are so potent and really poignant right now for things that are happening and that we're witnessing. So there's a plague taking place. They call it the curse. It transforms people from their human forms into this monstrous form where they are black, immortal, impervious to pain, and look hideous. They have skulls and horns and these terrifying affectations. And there's something to not having a soul. There's also this authoritarian religious regime that's orchestrating the fight against the curse. And as soon as the curse is seen within a municipality, the entire community is razed to the ground. They burn everything, they kill all the people. And these religious authority figures that are also the political authority figures are seemingly up to no good. They're quoting prophecy and they're orchestrating things, and it's still a bit mysterious. I think I'm 4 volumes in, something like that. And it's absolutely gripping. Our protagonists to the story are a gentleman from the other side, one of the cursed beings, and then a little girl from the inside, but she's living on the outside with, she calls him her teacher. So they're living together in this little cottage, and they have this very sweet, simple existence together. He can't touch her because that's how the curse perpetuates. So they have this very wholesome interaction of him caring for her without being able to physically interact with her, and with having no life-sustaining behaviors of his own. And there seems to be some memory loss aspect that goes along with the curse as well. So he's cooking for her, but he doesn't know quite how to. He's providing medical care for her, but he has all these limitations to it. And it's beautiful seeing them trying to piece together the mystery and also just live and not knowing who to trust or how to protect themselves, and what, especially for the teacher, like what his intentions are moving forward and what these different things mean to him and what his best course of action is. It's absolutely beautiful. I can certainly recommend it. I read Light from Uncommon Stars from Ryka Aoki. That was glorious. I am obsessed with Ryka. I saw her, I believe, for the first time at the Worldcon in New Zealand, and she's funny and whip smart and interesting. And Light from Uncommon Stars is a latent life lesbian romance between a alien starship captain who runs a donut shop and the Queen of the Damned, who is a violin instructor. It's incredibly wholesome. It is just so cute, and I can't recommend it enough. I just want to read it again and again. I read Pride and Pregnancy from Crista Crown. This is a new friend of mine, and I'm really excited to read more of their work. I'm new to a lot of that genre and that content. It's MPreg, and I don't know that much about it yet. So I'm looking forward to reading more of their work and understanding it better. I read You Can't Be Serious from Penn, which was really sweet. One of my library buddies had checked it out, and I'm not generally interested in memoirs from folks like that. I haven't seen much of his work. It's not something I was really into, but it was about to be returned, and so I was like, well, might as well read it before it gets returned. And I really enjoyed it. He worked with the Obama administration. He's gay. He got involved in NASCAR and developed an interest in it after making fun of it because his fiance or boyfriend at the time, and now husband maybe, had a passion for it. And just the whole book was really sweet. I loved learning about him as a human being. I loved getting an inside peek about how the television industry treats marginalized creators and shows that it says it's putting its support behind, but it's really just performative, and it's extremely irritating. But hopefully new dawns are breaking with the new technology and the way things have shifted in how we consume media. I read The Mindful Way Through Depression from several authors, but the only one I wrote down was John Kabat-Zinn. I could see it being helpful for someone who doesn't yet have a meditation practice established, for someone who's really struggling right now and wants to supplement their weekly therapy with practices and a framework to help them cope with this enormous collective grief we're all going through. And especially if they have clinical depression and they're already taking steps to work through it, this could be a wonderful supplement for that. Personally, I didn't gain very much from it, but I think it's a great starter pack. I read Care to Make Love in the Gross Space Between Cars from A Believer Book of Advice. And it's a compilation of a bunch of different super famous comedians responding to like Dear Abby sort of letters. I feel like it would be a very good set it on the back of the toilet book, but reading it straight through was not a wonderful experience. Almost all of the comedians took a really biting and negative take, and so it just felt like a bunch of really funny people bullying a bunch of Dear Abby writers. I don't know how they sourced the material for the questions that they responded to, but a lot of the responses were just mean, making fun of the people or just being blatantly abusive. Louis C.K.'s response back was like, I'm in a bad mood today. Fuck you, you're a jerk. Just abuse, sentence after sentence of abuse. Is that funny? I don't know. I don't get the joke. So I didn't get it. But again, I think it could be good for a back of the toilet sort of thing where you're just dipping into it for a bit at a time or just peeking in on your favorite person and seeing them be funny for a second. But with this collection of just blow after blow after blow, very powerful comedians ripping apart and just being mean for no reason to Dear Abby writers. Just ooh, I didn't prefer it. I read How to Write Funnier, How to Write Funniest, and How to Write Funny Characters, the final 3 in the series from Scott Dikkers that I started with last month with How to Write Funny. And I don't know if I can see the value in having them all be separate books. They weren't distinct enough for me to make sense having them be different books. I would prefer if they were just all in one book together or available in some kind of omnibus, especially they're $9 a piece for the Kindle, and that's probably a little expensive for comedy writers. So I would prefer seeing them all together in omnibus and organized a little differently, and then having the workbooks available. I made my own workbooks by converting the files and then creating a document that I could fill in because he has exercises and little tidbits that are short and pithy. So I just extracted that and put it into a workbook for myself. And that was super helpful and valuable and worthwhile. Offering workbooks for each of the sections and then offering the content all together in like an omnibus, I think would be a good value for money, value added way to consume that. Do I recommend it? I definitely recommend the first book. I think the first book is a great synthesis of a lot of information and a really good box of crayons for any comedic writer to work with and move forward with. And then so each of the books has kind of a specific lean into different types of comedic writing. So if you are one of those specific things and you want something speaking directly to you, maybe then invest in those books. But I feel like just the How to Write Funny is good. You don't really need the other books. Sorry, Scott, you're doing fine. I read Beloved from Toni Morrison, and it just ripped me to shreds. It just absolutely ripped me to shreds. While reading it, I kept thinking of this story. I don't know if I read it in the Viktor Frankl book or if it's even fiction from somewhere or a dream I had. I have no idea. There's this mother that was in a Nazi-occupied area who was hiding out with a number of people. They were in like a root cellar while the home was being searched, and the family that was protecting them was being questioned, and her baby started crying, and she was feeding the baby and trying to keep the baby quiet and managed to make it through, and the baby stayed quiet. But after the threat was over, she realized that she had smothered her own baby. So I kept thinking about that. Beloved on its own is haunting and impactful and a really important embodiment that lets you get into the skin of generational trauma and the lingering effects of slavery. The choice a lot of Black parents have in an oppressive and violent culture, how to protect their children and how to give their children the life that they deserve. I think it's really important. I think it's an incredibly important read, especially right now in the light of Black Lives Matter, and particularly in the light of the consistent and prevailing bigotry and white supremacy. Read it. Read Toni Morrison. Read all of her stuff. She's absolutely brilliant. And just on a matter of craft, just for the craft alone, absolutely buy her work and read it with depth and with grace and space. Let it move through you and change you. Let it work. That's what I want to do. That's why I want to write. And she's an absolute inspiration. I read Friends with Benefits from Nezkovsou. It's a webtoon webcomic. It's about this non-binary asexual person navigating what that means. So it's not a coming out story. It's a perpetual experience of being in these shoes story and what it looks like to develop relationships or shy away from them because you've just been burnt enough or don't feel safe pursuing relationships for good reason. So it's just really sweet. It's like a little stick figure cartoon. There's a bunch out there, but the panels are pretty short. Each release is just very short and sweet. So I definitely recommend it. I think he releases like every day or twice a week. So there's a lot of content coming out all the time as well. So check him out. Check them out. I don't know what Nezkovsou's pronouns are. I read The Wisdom of Your Body from Hilary L. McBride. It was another recommended resource from the Come As You Are book. And it's good. I feel like there are so many books that do what it did a little better. So just having been inundated with a lot of that content, it doesn't stand out as particularly memorable or life-changing. But if it was the only thing that you read, or if you feel particularly drawn to that person and their voice or the look of the cover, whatever gets you into the work, absolutely tear it up. So I think it's important. It's important to have a lot of voices in that space. It's important to have a lot of people doing that work. So I'm grateful for it. And period. Oh, I went through the audio of A Swim in the Pond in the Rain from George Saunders because I had several writer friends tell me that it made a huge difference for them and that it was a totally different experience and more beneficial to them than the book. And I loved the book so much that I was like, sign me up, let's check it out. And it didn't do anything different for me. One of the things that delighted them so much about it was that there were famous people reading these different Russian short stories. If you are resistant to Russian literature, or if you've had a tough time with it in the past and you respond well to pop culture and modern media, then it could be excellent for you to just get a taste for it and get the sound of it and the feel of it from these really skilled performers. For me, when I'm going through and analyzing text, I don't like to be distracted by performance. I just want, if anybody's reading it to me, like a robotic voice, just plain to where the prose shines through and I can see what's happening. So it was not my preference to go through the audio for it, but your mileage may vary. So there's options. I read Morrison. I read Boundary Boss from Terri Cole, which when I read it felt extremely important and I felt touched several points on going through it. But since then, looking through more of her content and seeing her general vibe, I'm bouncing off of it and I don't prefer it. Upon further reflection, I don't prefer it. I feel like there's a lot of great content coming out right now about boundaries. So definitely add it to the milieu if it's something you're going through right now. But there are better resources available. If you have read it or do read it and it doesn't resonate with you, there's better out there. I read Project Hail Mary from Andy Weir. It's probably my favorite thing I've read this year. It was so good. The unlikely protagonist and the unlikely relationships that they form and the way the story resolves, it's just beautiful. So the premise is that there's an astrophage bacteria, essentially this like virus that's eating our sun and putting life as we know it in danger. And so they have to scramble to remedy that. And it's delightful. And it packs so many surprises and funny moments, elements of the world building that are delightful and just blow you away. It's wonderful. I loved it. I read all of Becca Syme's nonfiction works to date. Dear Writer, You Need to Quit. Dear Writer, Are You in Burnout? Dear Writer, You're Doing It Wrong. Dear Writer, Are You in Writer's Block? And Dear Writer, It Is Still 2020. And those were all magnificent. And Becca Syme, I went through all of the recorded podcasts, all of her recorded videos in the Better Faster Academy community on Facebook. And I'm blown away. I went through and I did my Clifton strengths, and I've been talking with my writer friends who are in the know about that stuff about it. I learned that I've been actively working against all of my strengths pretty much, thanks to masking and just being in a hostile environment for a long time. So I am in the process, once I move through burnout, I am in the process of learning how to find my footing again and how to swim downstream rather than swimming upstream against myself all the time. I'm looking forward to that. It feels really daunting right now, especially when I was first faced with it and just had this moment of like, oh my God. Okay, well, this is kind of telling of my nature and maybe of my maladaptive programming, but I was introduced to this information and my immediate reaction was like, okay, I will just do everything different starting tomorrow. And I started in on it and just immediately was having panic attacks and meltdowns and not being able to breathe for joking on sobs. I'm going to take it slowly. Once I start to find my footing, once I find my first rungs on the ladder out of the pit, I'll work more diligently with that content. I do think, like, while all of my systems are down right now, I think it is helpful for me to be assessing how I got to this place, widening my scope to see what alternate choices were possible and might have been more fruitful or supportive or nourishing. And I'll need help with that. Luckily, I'm in therapy. so I have a therapist working with me, and I've asked a few questions of Becca on her YouTube videos, and she's been very generous in responding. If it's a course or a community that you're familiar with, and you would like to talk about it and have a buddy, definitely reach out. I would love to talk more about it and have buddies in the work. I read Bright Precious Thing from Gail Caldwell. She's a very well-educated and award-winning writer. I didn't enjoy the voice of the work so much, but I feel like it's important work, and it's important to have a lot of voices and a lot of people telling their stories. It was another recommended reading from the Come As You Are book. I've heard that voice before, and it wasn't a voice that I was particularly looking for in the moment, so it didn't resonate with me as strongly as some of the other work. But it's also just important to have that story and to have our voices being heard and to have a lot of different voices speaking to a lot of different people. So if that flavor of voice resonates with you and is someone that you want to hear from, check out Gail's book. I read The Worm at the Core from Sheldon Solomon, which was awesome. I liked it even more than Denial of Death from Ernest Becker because it synthesizes that information. It opens it up into more present practicality. However, the audiobook, don't touch it. Just don't mess with it. The voice actor that they got for it just does not sit well with the tone of the book. Listen to some of Sheldon's lectures. They're available free on YouTube. He's just this old hippie professor, and he has this very particular way of speaking that shines through the writing, but with this voice actor that they had reading it, it just deadened it, and it didn't make sense for the material. Just get the text and then have Sheldon's voice in your head. And it feels like a really important work and a really important reframing for these modern times that we're living in, and the friction between polarities that's actively detrimental and hurting us. The bigotry, the systems of oppression, the tribalism that we're seeing in I believe this is the correct course of action. I believe this is the correct course of action. These people are lying to us. These people are lying to us. Those people are monsters. Those people are monsters. Rah, 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 rah. And nobody gets anywhere. Like, we're actively hurting each other and letting systems run amok with people at the helm that are causing more harm than good, and that have many behaviors and choices that are just going unchecked. And so we need to broaden our awareness and stop making monsters out of our neighbors. And people don't grow through shame. Shame shuts us down. I think it's a really important book and definitely worth reading. I read Your Body Is Not an Apology from Sonya Renee Taylor, and it was so good. I could listen to her talk all day. She's a slam poet, and she had this sort of breakthrough moment. She was talking with her friend, and her friend was going through this really unpleasant experience of cishet dating, maybe some compet dating. They're a disabled person, and they felt like they had to engage in these abusive, unsatisfying relationships because who else would want me? And Sonya said to her, your body is not an apology. And just, the book is so empowering. The stories are so empowering. Sonya herself has just a beautiful, resonant voice. The audiobook was excellent because she reads it. Definitely check it out. Support her and her work. It's so important. I read the rest of the Avatar, The Last Airbender graphic novels. The Rift 1-3, Shadow and Smoke 1-3, North and South 1-3, Imbalance 1-3, Katara and the Pirate Silver, Toph Beifong's Metal Binding Academy, Suki Alone, Lost Adventures, and Team Avatar Tales. My preference among all of them were the ones written by Faith Erin Hicks. I feel like she did a brilliant job, and the artist that worked with her did a brilliant job taking the style and being respectful to it while elevating it for the form. Excellent. It was good to have a greater bandwidth and context and some more resolution to the plot lines from the show. It would be lovely if we could just have more of the show. In the absence of that, this is a good supplement of material. So check it out if you enjoyed the show and you want to spend more time with those characters. I read The Book of She from Sarah Avant Stover. That was good. It feels like an important work, an important voice in that window of content. I would read it together with Dance of the Dissident Daughter from Sue Monk Kidd and Big Magic from Elizabeth Gilbert. I feel like those three together are really powerful. And if you could only choose one, I probably wouldn't start with The Book of She. But again, I feel like it's an important voice in that general window of content that's shining through right now. I read Fierce Self-Compassion from Kristen Neff, and that was just phenomenal. It's my favorite thing I've read from her. It's my favorite thing I've seen from her. And I've seen and read, I have consumed a lot of her content, and it's all wonderful. But Fierce Self-Compassion feels super important right now, especially with the sensitive people of the world and the empaths of the world just having the shit kicked out of their emotions for 3 years, with the immense collective grief we've all been going through, and just continuing horrors of bigotry and bullying and hate crimes and torture. And Fierce Self-Compassion from Kristen Neff is really important, especially if you're in a situation that is hostile or abusive, or if you're coming out of a situation that was hostile and abusive and cut you down and you're a sensitive person. This is a really important work to begin building you back up and begin forming a structure to build yourself on. She does such good work. I read Under the Whispering Door from TJ Klune, and it was so good. I am obsessed with him. I am going to read all of his books now. I have all of them on my shelf now, and I will be working my way through them. I started out with his first book that he ever wrote, which is a little difficult for me, but I feel like it's going to be important to have that comparative arc and be able to see how his writing has developed over the years. I really enjoyed Under the Whispering Door. I think it is so wholesome and such an important book for people who are either in a place in their life where they're living out of alignment with themselves for the sake of what they feel like they're supposed to do, and particularly if they're successful but don't feel good, and also for people who are on the other side of those people and see someone who's just gone through life being an asshole and hurting everyone around them, and then they die and no one gives a shit. This book is so good. The world building is great, the voiciness is great, the cast of characters are beautifully formed and collaborate together to just create an experience that is like none other. I love this book. I read White Tears, Brown Scars from Ruby Hamad again. Really important work. Definitely read it. I read The Hating Game from Sally Thorne. Enemies to Lovers romance. It's not my genre, so take everything I say about it with a grain of salt. You may love it if it just hits that trope the way you like. It's not my favorite trope. I don't like it at all. I don't like bullies at all, particularly in The Hating Game. And I watched the movie as well after I read it. The pivot is not earned. You don't get to see the development. So it's just like, oh, surprise. I've been mean to you all this time, but surprise, I really liked you. And is that fulfilling? Do you like that? If you like the enemies to lovers romance? I felt like the slow turning and development of the relationship, like, oh, I thought you were, just one of those old Montagues with your Montague ways, and oh, you're an actual human being and we have all this common ground, and coming together and building it and building trust and building that relationship feels like an important part of the enemies to lovers trope, and that just like doesn't happen. It's just like, surprise, I've been in love with you for years. Spoilers, but that's what's gonna happen. Come on, this is romance. I read People We Meet on Vacation from Emily Henry. It was adorable and just the light, fluffy little romp that I needed that day. It's this friends to lovers romance. This couple who go on vacation together every year, and it starts in present day and there's some discord between them, but they're going to be going on vacation together again after not talking for a couple years. And then you see like the past 10 years of them going on vacation together, starting from the first one and then working your way back up to present day. And then you piece together what happened, that they fell out, and then, big surprise ending. But it's really sweet. I enjoyed it. It was fun. And it was a fun bit of escapism from not being able to travel or see new sights or discover new places or hang out with friends. So it was nice. It was a nice bit of escapism and romance. I read Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating from Christina Lauren. That was super cute. I enjoyed it too. It's another friends to lovers romance where the couple keep setting each other up on blind dates and going on double dates together with their blind dates to a comedy of errors. And it's really sweet. Like, it's going to happen the whole time. There are a couple little twists that are tropes that if they excite you, I won't spoil the book by saying the tropes, but maybe it's on the book jacket somewhere, so check it out. But if those tropes excite you, maybe it would be super enjoyable to seek it out just for that. But it is cute. It's very funny and lighthearted. It doesn't take itself seriously at all, and the voiciness and the characters in it are sweet. If you read the first few pages and you don't like the characters, they don't change, so just like drop it if it doesn't speak to you right away. But that was fun. Nice lighthearted romp. I read Damaged Goods from Talia Hibbert, and I'm so glad I took the time to reread it before doing this video, because I listened to it. So I listened to the audio of it from my dictation thing, which is something that I do frequently. But since I've been in burnout, my brain has been like Teflon, and it's been really hard for me to engage with content in the same way. So I read it like 2 or 3 times, just letting the audio slap at my ears, and it didn't connect with me at all. So I thought, oh my god, it's the first Talia Hibbert book that I'm not enjoying, and it has some triggering content that's like specific to me. So I was like, oh god, is this my first Talia Hibbert book that I don't like? I've read everything of hers, but no. So I went through and I just read it on paper, and that changed the game. I was able to sink into the story and get the context for it, because I didn't even notice the context for it. This is how whacked out I've been. I didn't even notice the context. I knew it was a Ravenswood book, but I wasn't connecting things. But seeing the connection, getting to hear that story and having a redemption arc for that villain, and then having a get the shit kicked out of him arc for the main villain was really sweet, and I loved it. And I think it's the first book I've read that I haven't written where you have a pregnant protagonist that's pregnant from the start of the book and nothing tragic happens to them. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was super sweet and empowering and just wonderful, particularly for women coming out of abusive situations. Excellent. And also women doubting their worth as they come out of abusive situations with kids or with a new shape to their body or a new necessary dependence on other people. I think it's really important and empowering, and Talia, just with her voice, I could spend all of my time with her. I love her. And then more Shularoon. And that was my December. I hope you had a beautiful 2021, such as it was. I will shortly be putting together my 2021 wrap up where I just do like a sentence on all the books that I read in 2021. So I'll see you then. Have a beautiful, beautiful 2022.